Hey guys, this has been a long time coming. I kind of just want to have a conversation into the direction I expect this channel to go into, so you can figure out if there's somewhere you want to stay and hang out, or is there somewhere else you would like to go. So let's get started with a little smoking. I have not smoked anything since I gotten home from work, which was about an hour ago. So I've been working hard to clean off this damn couch. And I'm starting off with this is the Me Time pen from Good News. I don't know who, they're a sub company. This is a sample I got. Really love it. A lot has changed in the last year. I really have switched to smoking more indicas when I come home at night. I kind of noticed, in addition to coffee, sativas, smoking them constantly and never really dabbling into indicas personally was really making me wired by the time that I had to go to bed. And then even smoking wouldn't help because I would be sitting there smoking some sativas. I had a point when I was smoking some CBD, but the last couple of months I've really been hard on just smoking indicas when I get home from the evening. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and take a hit of this pen. This is a very big berry flavor, but I find it really great for relaxing in the evening. It's a 500 milligram disposable. Had it for a while now, right before the holidays, as in Christmas. I lost it for 2 weeks, and then I recently found it. I know a lot of people said that they last for a good time, so we will see about how long this lasts me. As you guys know, last year was working very hard to get a job into the cannabis industry, which anybody who's ever done it knows it's not easy. I feel like you really do have to apply to a lot of places, show interest in cannabis. You can't really just go into it thinking you want to work a job just to work with weed. It's so much more than that. Back in September, I went to New Jersey. Now, the funny thing is, right before I went to New Jersey with my boyfriend, I happened to get some response back to a job that I applied for. I applied for my job kind of just completely out of the blue. I was just looking on the internet. I applied within the first week. I had my first and second interview, and then they were I let them know that I was traveling. They were really interested in getting an interview before then, but sadly it had to wait until I got back. So you can imagine I went on this vacation. I was really anticipating coming back and doing this, and it just really worked out. I had my last interview. I felt really confident that I got the job, but I think because of how last year went with the first and second two dispensaries I applied with, I just didn't want to get myself too excited. But as you guys can see, I did get the job. So for the last 4 months, I have been bud tending, which has been really great. I feel like I've learned a lot. The training they had us do was actually really helpful. It kind of was just building on to things that I had already educated myself on. So it just kind of was I was getting the next piece of information that I was definitely accessible on the internet, but maybe on the internet, I just sometimes information, depending on how it's given to me, it's very hard for me to sit there and to read it. I'm gonna hit this pen one more time. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I did used to work retail. So I'm finding that working, in medical dispensary, it's kind of like old retail experience. Similar things. It's just a matter of getting used to, I guess, selling cannabis rather than selling clothes and stuff, which has been really easy. I feel like when I first started, and people would ask me questions, I would have no idea how to answer. And now, only 4 months later, I go into a nice spiel so much that by the end, they're just wow, you've taught me so much. And also, I have a good base place for I start learning for myself in the future. Now, I'm not perfect, some mistakes have been made, but just things to learn from. Overall, I do feel like this is exactly what I asked for, what I worked really hard for the past year. And it's just been really great. I'm lucky to work with the people that I do and the company that I work for. Bud tending has really helped me to change my relationship with cannabis, which I'm not saying this is in any way wrong. A lot of people personally feel like they need tea breaks. I'm not a tea break person. I can take tolerance breaks, but it has to be for a long term, kind of for a purpose. If I decided that, hey, I just want to see if I can stop smoking for a month, I would completely stop smoking for a month, but I'm also not the type to just stop smoking for a couple of days. Usually I've learned that just adding in some CBD into my routine really just helps me from not just constantly being in this state of high, and also helping me to medicate for other things in addition to just medicating for fun. And today I will be smoking on some ice cream cake from Evermore. I've really been loving Evermore like the past month. Really great flower. I know last summer I was playing around a lot with their untrimmed flowers, so it's been nice to really buy a lot more of their. I just think overall the nugs just look very nice. I just never am really disappointed, you know, when I get their stuff. So I'm gonna pack a bowl of some ice cream cake. This is actually indica. Very smooth, not really anything too crazy about it. For indicas, for me, I don't necessarily need something that's going to knock me out unless it's something specifically I'm buying for sleep. I just need something that is relaxing. So high levels of myrcene, high levels of beta-caryophyllene. I'm starting to notice things with high levels of linalool by itself can also be very relaxing without like necessarily putting me to sleep. This is also an important thing for me to say. This is a safe space for us to talk, for us to have conversations. What I'm telling you isn't the wrong or right way to medicate. It is more just about giving you information to figure out how you would like to change your relationship with cannabis, if that is something you're interested in doing. Because I feel like I definitely go through periods where for just like a couple of months I'm in a constant like medicating state, and then I'll slightly tweak something a little bit differently. I'm always trying new things. I'm not really one to buy bulk of the same thing unless it's just something I know I really like. So one of the craziest things that happened since I posted the YouTube video last year is that I had a person comment, shout out to him, and he was just saying how much he loved the video. It was really great to see someone talking about cannabis, and he personally asked me to next talk about cannabis and dating. So in addition to like blabbing and catching up like I did before, we are also now about to just have a nice little conversation about cannabis and dating. Now, just to give you guys some insight, I have been that person who has either been the smoker in the relationship, or I have been the person who has not wanted anything to do with weed, but has dated someone who was a really heavy smoker. So this is really just me giving some advice. Maybe hopefully something I say to you will resonate and give you a better insight into like how to handle these things moving forward. As I mentioned previously, I haven't always been so heavy into cannabis. This has really just been the last like year of my life. I have been a constant everyday smoker. The last 2 years kind of, but I was still buying like off the black market, so I wasn't really always having some on me. But before this, I really was kind of just like a dabbler. So if I was talking to someone who smoked, sometimes I would be in the mood to smoke with them, and other times I wouldn't. Because before I really understood my relationship with cannabis, I was the type of person who used to smoke and get anxious. Now, it wasn't always so bad. It's just like, I feel like if I smoked something that didn't fit with me, it was like a really low level of greening out, where just like you're thinking about everything, but you're just thinking about a lot of stuff at the same time, and it's just like you're not able to enjoy the high. I never really get like that now, which is kind of funny to me, but also I know your body's different. I'm not smoking the same stuff I was smoking when I first started smoking, so you know, whatever. So let's start off with what to do when you're interested or talking to someone who isn't necessarily the biggest cannabis supporter. Now, I would personally say to treat this like you treat your parents. My mom, when I first started smoking, I felt like I really tried my best to learn more so that I could talk to my mom and be like, hey, this is like really great. This is really awesome. You know, I know it's not your cup of tea, but this is what I like. And at first my mom was kind of just like, you know, a really big stink face. Like, my mom is not a smoker. My mom is not a drinker. My mom does not smoke cigarettes. She is very much straight edge. I can count on one hand how many times I've seen my mom drink alcohol. She's, you know, that is her choice of life, and that's cool. Only after like a year and a half, I feel like my mom and I don't have those conversations where like, you smoke too much. And it's really just involved into like, when I have an attitude, my mom is usually the first person to be like, you need to go and smoke and calm down. So I think the first big thing I would say is education. Educating people helps them to understand that maybe if it's not something for them, why it works for you. When people understand that you're hurting for whatever reason, that may be physically, that may be mentally, you may just do it for fun. It doesn't, you know, whatever your choice of medicating, that just helps them to understand you do it for whatever reason, and that's your personal choice. This helps to put like some facts behind it, you know? A lot of people who don't consume cannabis, I should say, look at this as like a very big like, oh, you're just doing drugs. It's not just doing drugs. I'm medicating. As someone who used to be on several different types of prescribed medications, this does more for me than that ever did. at the time when I was prescribed medications, I was also just had a drinking problem. So, you know, it wasn't the best combo. It wasn't the best combo. And like I always say, had I had the chance to really get into cannabis, I don't really feel like I ever really would have had that issue with drinking, because I would have found something that works so much better for me, that doesn't give me hangovers, that doesn't make me feel like a piece of shit after I've had, like, you know, 4 or 5 drinks. Just really something that I can consume for fun and feel great, and I can consume to help my mind, and I can still feel really great. Education. The next part is, I would say, being mindful. And I'm not saying that you should change yourself for other people, but I'm saying if you are dating someone, or you're talking to someone, or you might even be married to someone who's not the biggest cannabis supportive. Let me give you an example. For example, my mom, as I said, very much straight edge. She doesn't like when I smell, because I don't drive. So, you know, when we do go places together, I'm in the car with her. She doesn't like when I smell, so I do have to spray myself down before leaving the house and stuff. And it's not because I'm hiding like anything from myself. It's just being considerate of the fact that I live with my mom. And also, you know, she's my mom, and I don't want to sit here and do something that I know is gonna irritate her, but overall just not help my battle with helping her to understand why I enjoy cannabis and why it's not a bad thing. It's really just a medicine. My boyfriend also is not a smoker at all. So when I know that I'm going to spend like a couple of days with him, I usually stock up on edibles. I have a cart. We've had conversations. You know, sometimes when we're out and about, I even step out of the store to go outside to hit my cart if I'm getting too anxious and stuff like that. The point is, I found a middle ground for me to medicate around them and for it to not be this negative thing. It is more normalizing like my medicating, you know? And even now we've had a lot of conversations about just sometimes he asks me to explain why I'm smoking. He'll be like, I don't understand why you feel like you need to smoke right now. And that kind of segues us into our next point. Sometimes explaining why you are medicating at the point that you are medicating, or after the fact, whatever, can help the person to understand. At the end of the day, nobody is a mind reader. People cannot read into your mind, so they can't understand why you chose to medicate. I know that when stores get crowded, sometimes if I have a weird, like very, just in my opinion, weird social interaction that goes completely like left, I do have to leave the store and smoke and then come back in to like recollect myself. And one time my boyfriend actually asked me why I did that, and I explained, and you know, he was like, I understand it a lot better now that you explained it to me, because sometimes I'm curious, but I guess he said before he just didn't really want to, in the sense that he didn't want to make it seem like weird. But it's good to ask. It's good for you to ask questions, and it's also good for them to ask questions. You want them to understand what you're doing. You don't have to smoke cannabis to understand it to a certain extent. So educate, be mindful, and elaborate. Educate your partner, or, you know, the person you're dating, whoever. Let's just overall really say that this advice can go any types of relationship. Educate whoever on cannabis. Let them to understand that it is a plant, it is a medicine. This isn't this drug that the government puts it out to be. Help them to understand that a lot of states are legalizing it for a reason. It's very much helpful. It's helpful to people who have physical illnesses, mental illnesses, emotional illnesses, all these things under the very like same umbrella. It helps people, you know? The second one is be mindful. If you know that somebody does not smoke, if you know that somebody isn't a fan of how it smells, don't go around them super stinky. If you know you need to medicate around them, if you're able to, give yourself an option that lets you do that discreetly. It's clear that you're medicating, but it's not medicating in the sense you're medicating in a way that is both comfortable for you and for them. Because really, when you talk about cannabis and relationships, you do have to find a middle point. You should be comfortable doing what you're doing, but at the same time, you should make sure you're making the other person feel comfortable in being around you when you medicate. And the third thing is to elaborate. When you're medicating, explain why you're medicating. With physical illnesses, it can be sometimes clear why you're medicating, but not always. With mental illnesses, it's not always apparent, so it does help for you to elaborate on why you're medicating and to tell your partner that. I think that cuts it for being with someone who does not smoke. I have noticed when I date somebody who smokes, let's be clear, the last time I dated somebody who smokes was my ex-boyfriend. that was pretty cool. But before that, I was only ever really dating when I was super single and really just dating and not buying my own and really just, you know, men were buying it for me. Amen, amen. You have to be careful with a lot of things when you're both smokers and dating, especially if this is a very new relationship. The biggest thing I would say is to have rules as far as to when it comes to like your stash. Now, I know some couples are very like, oh, you know, they pretty much buy and supply for each other. It's a joint effort. And for other people, it's more like you take turns. You know, one person might buy the weed one time, one person might buy the next. My first advice would be to be very clear about your expectations for your cannabis, whether that be who's buying, if you have separate stashes, if you're just combining your stash and it's a collective stash, especially if you live together. Be very open and clear about what you expect when it comes to your cannabis. Is it your cannabis? Is it y'all's cannabis? You know, you have to get the small things together so it doesn't end up in an argument or an issue later on. My second thing would probably be, keep in mind that you both might consume cannabis, but your relationships with cannabis are very, very different. What you do to go to sleep or to have a good day might not be the same way that your partner does it, and vice versa. And in that sense, I think when you're dating someone who also consumes cannabis, you have to be very open-minded in the sense that they're consuming and medicating might not look the same as you, but in the end, you have to understand that you are getting that same end effect. The plant overall is helping you both to feel much better. But I feel like sometimes when people date other people who smoke, there can kind of be this self pressure or even really pressure from the partner to like medicate differently or medicate more or medicate less. But in reality, like I'm saying, you have to remember that your relationship is your relationship with cannabis. Your partner's relationship or whoever is your partner or whoever is relationships with cannabis. So what they do is not the same as what you do, and that is okay. One thing to be very mindful is that under the umbrella of cannabis consumers, there's a line, so to speak, okay? These are the people who are very loud about that loud they be consuming, and these are the people who are very quiet about that loud they could be consuming. Although you might be open and out about your relationship with cannabis, I've learned through my job, there are a lot of people for whatever reasons who don't have that freedom to do that. So you have to understand that while you might feel comfortable, you know, going out smoking a J, you know, smelling that gassy good, going to the restaurant, your partner or whoever might want you to take a little spray down before you go out because they might be worried that Betty from church is gonna see them, okay? So really, I just wanted to give you some tips, anything to help you understand that it's possible to be a smoker and to date a non-smoker, and it's possible to be a heavy smoker and to date a non-heavy smoker. It's also possible to be a not smoker and to date somebody who does smoke, and just all things are possible. It's just all about working with yourself, working with those other people to really help them to understand that cannabis is medicine. I feel like that's what it really all comes back to, that cannabis is medicine. I think that is going to be it for this video. I'm currently stuffing this bowl to smoke this, and then I'm going to record a video for WeedTube, so you guys can definitely catch out on that. Check that out. I said like 3 things in one sentence. Just the last year, I really have learned that hard work really does pay off. I think sometimes it's easy to be sad and to be upset about things that was meant to be for you, but in reality, what's meant to be for you is still waiting like further down your path, so you have to keep going. Last dispensary I interviewed for before I got my current job, I really did cry a long time about that. Like I remember I was off and I just felt like, I don't know, I felt really bad. I guess I really felt like I was gonna get the job, and now later, it just for all reasons, it turned out to really not be the place for me. That's just my advice for anyone who's also looking to get into the cannabis field. Just apply to everywhere and anywhere. If you're in a state where you're able to buy medically and you have that market to really have products and review them and stuff like that, I would recommend doing that. I feel like I got my job when I was supposed to get my job, because had I gotten that job closer to when I started all of my social media stuff, I probably would have felt like some of that was owed to my job. But in reality, I now know that that is hard work I did myself. Like even now, I do like post a lot of products and stuff from work, but my Instagram is my Instagram. You know, that's my little baby. And I really just do that as a place for people to see products, to give them a reason to smile, to have a sense of community. The thing I will say I'm proud of love is this past year is I've expanded my community as far as other Maryland influencers and patients. So, and that's been really great. It's really nice to have like this whole like group of people to see who are medicating on things I'm also medicating on. It really gives me a better sense of just like things to look out for, you know? Yeah. So I guess that is all for this video. I can't wait to see you guys again. I don't really know what my second video will be. Some more things to see in the future are gonna be like tutorial and educational type stuff for YouTube, just because I've noticed in the state of Maryland, because of compliance, there's a lot of things that people need help on that they're not able to do because I'm sitting at work under compliance laws from the state. Versus here, I'm in the comfort of my home, and therefore I can help you guys with anything, with some stuff that I know you guys struggle with. Opening packaging, understanding dosaging, getting into different types of medicating that you've never done before, dabbing, if you're usually doing flower, vice versa, going from just doing edibles to creeping into like vape or things like that. That is the type of things that I really am going to be pushing out. You're going to be seeing a new video every week. Make sure you are following me on all of my other social medias. I will be linking it down below. It's all the same at 3 O's, OOOHBLUE. That's where you can catch your girl Blazy Blue. And as always, guys, I'm going to remind you to stay positive and keep it blazy, and I will see you next week.